Welcome to the Living Proof Recovery Podcast. We are your hosts, Brian and Evan, and tonight we are joined by our good friend Gary. So, Gary, what's up, man? I haven't seen you. God, it's been. I think the last time we actually saw each other and talked was probably you spoke for me at my 2 year celebration. I know we've seen each other kind of in passing since then, but it's been a while,
Man.
So we've talked, through text messages and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
so like, what's been up with you in the past? I don't know, since we've seen each other for like 2 years.
A lot. Man, I forgot about that. That's awesome. How long ago was that?
Almost 2.5 years ago.
Wow. Time flies, man. They say time flies when you're having fun, right?
Mhm.
And since then, what has been happening? Well, I've stayed sober one day at a time. So that alone is a miracle. I'll start with that. But really, it doesn't seem as much as a miracle like when you actually just start to do what they said to do. It just kind of it's just a part of my life now, and I don't say that to be overconfident. But it's who I am now. I'm just God forbid I'm not being destructive anymore, and I need a pat on the back for it. But man, I bought a house recently. I went from working, so I'm a clinical therapist. I went back to school, but I was in school probably last time I saw you. So I got my master's degree, which is not something I planned on doing in recovery. But I did want to pursue working in recovery, and I kind of gravitated towards the clinical field. And in order to do that, I needed to get a master's degree to do what I wanted to do in that field. So got the master's degree. That was a grind. In a relationship, I've been with her for 3 years. It would be 3 years on July 2nd. That's her birthday, so I asked her on her birthday because I have a bad memory, and I figured I'll remember our anniversary on her birthday.
So either you're really smart or you're going to forget and you're going to be in a lot of
Oh my God, the double dip of trouble, man. I didn't even think about that. So far, I haven't forgotten.
I won't put that evil on you.
Yeah, man, don't do that. Talk it into existence. But no, life's been good. I got my home group. It's a spiritual kindergarten. It's a St. Thomas More. It's Monday at 7:30. So I go to that every Monday. I'm working in IOP now. So intensive outpatient. Okay. We also do OP, outpatient level of care. We have both levels. So I went from inpatient to outpatient just to kind of feel out, the different levels. And I'm surrounded by an incredible team. I'm not doing like a subtle plug or anything like that. That's just, what I'm doing now. So I get to work with guys. I got a caseload. I get to teach groups, sponsoring guys, doing my program outside of my work, not letting my work be my, before I started working in recovery, I called a friend of mine who had been working in recovery for a while. She was a director of nursing. And I said, give me some advice. And she said, first, have boundaries with the clients. And then second, do not let your work be your recovery. So I took I took that to heart, continuing my program. Man, I've gotten into softball lately. I really enjoy softball. I was a decent baseball player growing up, but it carried over enough to enjoy it out there. It's slow pitch, so it's easy to hit. When you throw a watermelon at 1 mile per hour, So softball's been fun, man. We have a recovery league on Wednesdays, so we got a bunch of people in recovery out there playing softball, so that's really cool. Because softball often is affiliated with drinking, but there's no drinking in this league, so that's really cool. What else? I've been playing a lot of volleyball, staying real active, doing a lot of hiking, traveling. And most recently a brand new house, so some projects that come with that, and a father of 3 animals. So I got a dog and 2 cats, and they're a handful. Hoping to have a human in the near future if God sees fit. So that's kind of a summary, but yeah, it's been a lot going on.
Sounds like it, dude. So it sounds like you're living life.
Yeah,
which is fantastic because, a lot of people think that we can't do that. Or, I'm sorry, not a lot of people, we think that. We think that when we get sober, life's going to suck, not going to be able to have any fun, So I know I started to find things that I used to be passionate about and started doing them in recovery. And I was like, I found these, it's like I found them for the first time again. Like you said, softball, volleyball. I started playing golf. Which was something that I associated with drinking. It's like, how am I ever going to play golf? I can't play golf.
Yeah.
Why can't I? I actually play better. I actually remember what my score is, or I can find my ball.
Soaking in the scenery of the golf course.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty nice. So, you had just celebrated.
My actual celebration is on July 28th, but I did just hit 5 years on the 16th. Yeah,
That's
this
awesome,
past
man.
Wednesday.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So, for the people that are listening, like, what's the difference in your life now at 5 years sober than it was when the journey started?
This would have to be a 10-hour podcast for that answer.
Right. Elevator version.
Sure. Man, everything's different. Everything's different. Somebody said one time early on that he used to be annoyed when he heard birds singing because it reminded him that he hasn't been asleep. And now he loves waking up early and having a cup of coffee and hearing the birds sing. And I think that's a good way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. The birds are singing, except in one instance, I'm associating it with their being annoying and reminding me that I'm living recklessly. And then the other, it's, oh my gosh, I get to wake up and hear like the song of birds, right? God's gift, and like enjoy my warm coffee. It's the same thing, two different mindsets. So I'd say the biggest thing that changed is the mindset. Early on, they said you don't have to go to treatment, you get to go to treatment. So I think that mindset is what I've taken in everything. Like, I used to think that working 9 to 5 in a cubicle was for suckers. You know what I mean? Like, you're at the hands of Big Brother and they're making all this money and you're just getting to, go paycheck to paycheck. And it was an unhealthy way to live. And now I get to go to work and I'm so grateful to be employable. I'm so grateful to have a job. After everything that I've done and the human being that I once was and the behaviors I engaged in, that somebody thinks that I will do a good job. Mm-hmm. And trust me, not only with just like anything, but like working with human beings in their development. That's baffling to me.
Y'all see my background?
Right. And so the biggest difference, man, is I used to dwell on the things that were missing, and now I'm so grateful for what I have, right? Like, I have a Hyundai Genesis, and I've always wanted, like, a Cadillac, and I don't care that I don't have a Cadillac. I love that my car gets me from A to B. You know what I mean? I'm in a healthy relationship, and I'm so grateful for that, and I have a job with people that I love working with. I'm so grateful for that. I have a home group with amazing people in the home group. I'm so grateful for that. What I found is that the good is great, and the bad is manageable. It used to be the bad was just catastrophe, and then poor pitiful me, all this self-imposed stuff that I did. So I finally realized that, you said something earlier that struck me. You said, we're afraid getting sober is going to suck. Before it sucked. You know
Exactly.
It can't be worse than that.
Exactly.
Right? So, like, there's that fear of the unknown, but the unknown has to be better than that. So, they say that I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous Fellowship, and they say that's the last house on the street, and it was for me. Mm-hmm. And man, I'm happy I found that street. So, to summarize, my mindset, my perspective, my outlook on life, for sure, is what's different.
It's like you mentioned the bird singing, right? It's so much nicer having bird sing than the chatter of 1,000 monkeys in your head, right? Because that's what my head was like. It was just chaos. But you mentioned something, and what I think is key there is that I thought, like, we're comfortable in the chaos. I'm comfortable in the pain. And that's ridiculous. Like, the fact we're so afraid of change, but it's not the change that's bad. Like, change is good. They say alcoholics don't like change. I don't like change that I don't like. Mm-hmm. Like, someone says, you're getting a promotion. I like that change. Yeah. Right? I don't like the change I don't like. Yeah. So, but it's not the change that's bad. It's the resistance to the change that hurts. Mm-hmm. Because I dig my heels in and I'm like, I'm not going to change. I'm going to change. I'm going to manage what I have. And it's a shit show. Yeah. Constantly. And I can't manage it. And that's the thing. Like, life is manageable. And that's something that's important to get across. Yeah. Is that life can be manageable. My life can also be unmanageable. Mm-hmm. If I'm not taking care of certain things, my life can get unmanageable pretty quickly. For sure. But as long as I do what I'm supposed to do, then I get taken care of. I get everything that I need. God gives me everything I need. And if he gives me everything I need, then what else do I need?
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It reminds me of somebody once said, if you're not grateful for what you have, perhaps you don't deserve anything more.
Mm.
And there's so much. I mean, the whole like manageability piece, I do think comes with like early on, right? Like life's different now than it was the first 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Early on, I was leaning on others who had it together. Others whose lives were manageable. Mine wasn't, but I would lean on them. And if I didn't know to go right or left, and they told me to go right, I went right. And then it ended up leading me in the right direction. So, like anybody that's new that's listening to this podcast, if they don't feel like their life is manageable right now and they have 17 days sober, you're right where you need to be. Like obviously there's a spiritual awakening on the back end of working the steps and the service with others. And it comes in time. I didn't become this chronic alcoholic the first time I picked up a drink. Now, granted, I drank to oblivion, but my drinking behaviors got worse over time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like a nice scotch, but at the end of my drinking, it was the cheapest vodka I could get. And that's not by choice. It was by, I had to make a financial decision and I needed it to last. And now I drink to the point where it's costing a lot. So if I'm going to get alcohol, it has to be cheap so I can get more,
Only the best for Gary.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Like everything I heard you say there, from the learning to have fun in recovery, like that's huge. Because we go on guys trips and rent cabins and go out and to the gorge or wherever, and so many people I work with are like, "How y'all don't drink? How are you gonna have fun out there?" And I mean, we go out there and laugh, and we're just idiots. So you know what I mean? Yeah. We're just out there having fun and
playing
with
spades
the boys.
with Jay.
And, right.
Somehow I'm always his partner.
And we always
whoever's been in jail along with that, want to be your partner in spades for sure.
But and then to hear you talk about the birds chirping and all that, because I can relate to that, because now today I can see that. Like I love my drive home, where our new house that we bought. I love the drive home because I get to see the sunsets and everything, and I'm like, man, I just take that in, and I never saw the beauty in those things in the past, and now we get to today, and it's awesome, So, but what about? Was there a point? Like, what was it like when you hit your rock bottom? What was that like, if you don't mind to touch on that a little bit?
That needs to be talked about. Somebody says, I'm a man of quotes and things stick with me, and I forget how it goes. I'm going to butcher it, but rock bottom was the bedrock that we built upon. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that was true for me, and everybody's rock bottom's different. I work with a lot of guys who had it way harder than I did. My rock bottom, man, it was alcohol and weed and cocaine at first, and the cocaine let me drink longer. The cocaine made me feel invincible. The cocaine made me think I was great at karaoke. I could reinvent the wheel. When the cocaine
I might change the world.
Alcohol, I could run for president. And then, there was hallucinogens and things like that, acid, Molly, mushrooms, all that kind of got into the scene a little bit with college. And then at the end of college, and then, pain pills really got involved because it kind of canceled out the cocaine and it allowed me to sleep. There were so many times my body was exhausted, but I couldn't shut my mind off. Mm-hmm. And then I would have these opiates, that could kind of allow the mind to calm down. So I registered success with that. And now I'm using a substance to get up, and using a substance to function, and using a substance to sleep, and using a substance to eat, and using a substance to be around my family, and you get the point, right? I'm a puppet. And I cannot function as a basic human being because I will be severely uncomfortable without it for maybe even an hour. Mm-hmm. So, the pain pills turned into the heroin, cocaine turned into methamphetamine, heroin turned into fentanyl, and snorting turned into IV. So how did I get there? I was raised by an amazing mother, with an amazing family, with an amazing life, with great schools and friends, and I did all the sports, and we did the bikes and the ramps and the skateboarding. How did I get here? On July 15th, 2020, I tried to take my life for the third time. It was an intentional overdose. And something about when I had ingested the fentanyl something kicked in. I still don't know what to this day. I mean, I'd have to just say a higher power, I would assume. But something kicked in where I automatically panicked that I couldn't believe that I just did that and that I'm actually going to die. And I was really scared. And I sent out text messages with, I don't know if there were words involved, but I know that there were locations. One of those was to my sponsor at the time. He was in Connecticut, and he reached out to, since he was in Connecticut, he reached out to a bunch of other guys in AA, and a handful of them showed up in this parking lot that I was at. And another one was my mom. And now my mom typically should have been 25 minutes away working from home, but she was 5 minutes away at a restaurant for a work lunch. So that's a miracle. And my mom, I was obviously overdose. So if I butcher any of these details, I'm sorry. This is just kind of what I remember and what I've been told. But my mom showed up. She said that I was overdosed in the driver's seat. She could tell with the color of my skin and the color of my lips. And unfortunately for her, she had seen that before. I've overdosed on her kitchen floor, which is nothing a mother should have to go through. So she gets me out of the car. She holds my head up. She does the whole deal. She panics. She gets EMS there. EMS Narcans me. I don't know how many times. I ended up coming to. I had a cloudy vision of my mom that was kind of in hysteria. I had a cloudy vision of these EMS workers, and I had a cloudy vision of a couple guys over there. That ended up being those AA guys that I didn't know that well. I mean, I was pretty fresh. And I was in and out, but man, they showed up, and that doesn't speak volumes to that program. And also what my mom has been to me. So what happened that I can remember, what's wild is that even sober, I have a terrible memory, and most of my 20s were a blackout, but this day was pretty vivid for me, and I feel like there's a reason for that. So I'm in and out, and I remember coming to a little bit in the bed at back deceased. I was on suicide watch. Due to it being found out that it was an intentional overdose. And I remember kind of coming to and seeing my mom next to the bed, and she just looked distraught. She looked out of sorts. Her hair, my mom's very well put together. She cares about her appearance, and her hair was like greasy. And you could tell because she was probably out in the heat, and she was panicking and crying and all the things we put our family through. Yeah. And I remember seeing her cry, and I remember seeing the tears falling, and there were these white square tiles on the ground, and my memory should not remember white square tiles. It gets pretty specific. And the tears or sweat or whatever it was hitting a puddle on the ground, which told me that she had been in that position for a while. And I had seen the pain I'd caused my mom a lot, but I was so numb to it, or I would immediately use on top of it to blot it out.
Not feel it, yeah.
But I had a moment of clarity there where something wanted me to see that and feel that and know that this is not just impacting me anymore. And I need to be aware of what this is doing. And man, it hit me. I don't want to say a lightning bolt or a burning bush or anything like that. I just emotionally connected to it. And I couldn't get away from it because I'm in a hospital bed on suicide watch. I can't put one in me and just forget that I'm hurting my mom. So I had to sit in that and think about it. And that was my rock bottom. And that was July 15, 2020. I was checked into treatment July 16, 2000.
So that was your last use?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think that it's really cool that you say that because it made me think of something. And I think that whenever we have these experiences of the spiritual variety, and that's a spiritual experience, sure, right? We remember them. They're very vivid. It's kind of like sometimes you have those vivid dreams, those lucid dreams, and you wake up and you remember everything about this dream. And most of the time you can't remember any of your dreams, right? But these spiritual experiences, we remember them. And kind of leads me to another question is, do you remember your first use?
My first use?
Your first time you got high?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which is wild that I do.
It's not though, because that's a spiritual experience, right? It is. Yeah. It is.
What's
right?
wild is there's only 2 substances I remember doing the first time, and there's a whole lot that I don't, But I was probably on other substances while I tried it.
Right. You just said that, and I'm like, dude, I remember the first time.
Yeah.
I remember maybe a couple first times of something I tried, but
I don't remember the first time I drank, but I remember the first time I smoked weed, and I remember the first time I used heroin.
I remember the first time I did all of them.
Wow.
And so the point that I'm making is what's your favorite food?
Cheese.
Cheese. Do you remember the first time you ate cheese? No, right? Because why? Because it didn't do something for you that nothing else could.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why we remember the first time that we use these substances, right? Because my whole life I was feeling a certain type of way, and then I take a drink of alcohol and that instantly gets treated and it goes away. I can tell you who I was with, the time of day it was, time of year it was, what I was wearing, like what we were doing. I can tell you all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you that kind of stuff about when my kids were born, their birthdays, my wedding day, my wedding night. Like, I can't tell you that stuff, right? Because I was having a spiritual experience with alcohol. There's a spiritual connection to it. That's why they call it spirits, right? Because it treats my spirit. That's why in any ghetto you go into, there's churches and there's liquor stores. And the reason for that is because they both give people hope, right? So those two things are always there. And that's why I can't remember the first time I ate tacos, right? But I do too. I love tacos, right? But I don't even know, I don't even know if I can remember the last time I ate them, but I eat them all the time, right? But I can tell you the last time that I used, and I can tell you the first time that I used, because it did something for me, right? So, and that's why that's why we keep using, is because it treats that internal thing that you were just talking about that you want to blot out. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel the depression. I don't want to feel the irritability, the anxiety, the boredom, the depression, the fear, the shame, the guilt. I don't want to feel all that stuff, so that's why we get to the point where we have two alternatives, right? We keep on doing that to the bitter end, or we seek a spiritual solution. Right. So I don't know, I just thought that was interesting that you said that. It made me think about that because.
Yeah. And it got me thinking because, when people say drug of choice, which, everybody has
drug of no choice.
Yeah. The second one, right? But like, everybody has an opinion on drug of choice. But like, for me, heroin was something different. And marijuana early on was something different. In a way that, like, that whole "I have arrived" thing they say, that's what those were for me, and that's probably why I remember them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's how it was for me too. Like so I've heard your story before, in treatment, and then 2 years ago at Brian's 2-year celebration. But I never realized, like, we lead two separate lives, like the way things you do for a living and everything you do versus what I do, but we're so much alike. When I just heard that brief part of your story about how you grew up with your mother and the sports and the good family, like I did all those things. I'm a mama's boy still to this day. She's always been my biggest enabler, but my biggest supporter in my recovery as well, know. And I can relate to all of that, and the details, like my first overdose, I don't know how long I was at the hospital. It wasn't very long because I think I was in there acting a fool, and I ended up getting the fuck out. But the difference there, that was that was an intentional overdose. You said mine wasn't, and that was my first time using heroin. Well, first time IV with an IV, injecting it, and I overdosed, and I remember. Before I fell out, and then when I came to in the hospital with doctors high-fiving over top of me, and I remember certain details, like you said, like specific things, and I'm like, why do I even fucking remember that? But I think because heroin did something for me that no other drug did, and I used a lot of other things before I started shooting heroin, but that might, other than like smoking weed, I think that might be the only drug I remember the first time using that way, and I get it, what you're saying, the spiritual thing. And then unfortunately for me, it was less than an hour or two after I left the hospital from an overdose. I was like, let's do it again.
Yeah. You've got what I've got.
Right.
Yeah. That just shows you the lack of power in this thing, right? Is that no matter how bad I don't want to do it, I have to do it.
Mhm.
Right? It doesn't matter how much I don't want to hurt my family, how much I don't want to hurt myself.
Yeah.
It's a fixed fight. Like, it's
Yeah.
like getting in the ring with fucking Mike Tyson
Mhm.
over and over and getting your ass kicked. And then you just like, let's do this again.
Mhm.
It's just, it's insane.
And what is it with moms? Like,
I know.
they love us so much,
Mhm.
and we put them through so much.
Yeah,
you
the
know?
one person that if God said, "Who's the one person you don't want to put anybody through?" I'd pick her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
That's
put
the
her
first
through
person to get it.
Yeah.
I can remember so many times from that over. I remember her calling me when I was in the hospital on my phone, and she's like, "I'm on my way," and I'm being a dick. And
Oh,
I'm like, "No,
yeah.
you're fucking not. I'm leaving.
Oh, yeah.
You're
I
not
talked to
fucking."
my mom
She's
for
terrified,
breakfast, yeah.
And I'm like, "No, you're fucking not." And I didn't allow her to get there. Maybe I didn't want her to see me like that. Maybe that had something to do with it. But then the dope was calling. I needed it
Yeah.
in.
And I didn't want to be held
felt something
accountable.
that I want. Right. I didn't want to be, and then the last time I got locked up, and she didn't know it was to that point of me using it. And I'm in jail, and she's at my apartment that she paid for. Keep in mind that she paid for because I didn't.
I'm a grown ass man. Why are you in my apartment?
I'm grown.
Grown.
But now
See
she's
the
at my
apartment you paid for.
she's at my apartment now. She's cleaning it out
Oh, boy.
and moving everything out. And I remember when I called her from the jail cell, and she was just distraught, and she had found hundreds of needles,
Mm.
and she's like, "What the fuck?
Mm.
Like, what? They're stashed everywhere. Like, what the fuck? Just the things."
Try and get traction on coming up with a lie to like make sense of
Right,
that. When it's like
right.
you're done, the gig is up.
Yeah.
You gotta just
Give up
admit
the
it.
ghost. You're done.
Yeah, Mom, it was my ex-girlfriend. Like,
Yeah.
100 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that made me think of something like, what's the most ridiculous excuse that you've ever come? Because you were talking earlier about your behavior,
Mhm.
right? So what's the most ridiculous excuse that you've come up with to justify your behavior? That looking back on it, you're like, I'm a fucking idiot. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
That might be a tough one. There's probably a lot of them. I know for me there
is
is
a tough. There is a
always a
tough one.
lot of them.
I'll give you a second because there's one that popped in my head when he said that, and I was in treatment at Landmark, and I was trying to justify my lying to my wife. We're in group, and I'm saying this out loud in front of everyone, and everyone's looking at me like I've got two heads, because all I said was, and it's saying it now sounds so stupid, but I said, I wouldn't have to lie to my wife if she would just let me use the way that I want to use. And like record scratch. Everyone looking like, do you hear yourself? And the therapist, the counselor, or whatever, she was like, do you hear what you're saying?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. Like, what's the, like, what? Like, if she would just let me use the way that I want, I would not have to lie to her. Like, so this is her fault.
Yeah.
Like, she's the reason I lie. And I remember she was like, well, maybe she doesn't want you to die. And I was just like, why would I die? I'm going to use the way I want to use.
Yeah.
And she's like, exactly. I was just like,
Full flight.
it took me a few minutes and it hit me and I was like, oh my God, like I'm sick.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe I said that in front of everybody. Like just ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Like, it's just,
And that's how you know you're growing because you hear it now and it sounds absurd.
I go back to some of my old journals from when the couple times I was in treatment, and I read them. I'm like, you sick bastard. I'm like, what the fuck?
I just found one.
You do
Because I moved into the new house. Yeah, going through some boxes, found a binder with some drawings. I was like, I might have been in psychosis. I mean, they're wild.
I'll
Right.
tell you, my last stint in treatment, what I did, and I don't know why I did it, but I'm like journaling, right? I've never journaled before, and one of the therapists at the time, she's like, "Yeah, you should journal." And then for some reason, I'm journaling, and for like the first week or two, I don't know what the fuck I'm even writing because I'm just still cloudy.
Right.
And then for some reason, I like rip them all out. And I'm like, I'm gonna mail them to my wife. And I did.
Our best
I
thinking.
did, right. I did. I remember going in there and I'm like,
I did the same thing.
I'm telling her, I'm like, I mailed these to my wife. And she's like, what? What are you doing? And I'm like, I did it. I mailed it to her. And then even my wife was like, do you even know what the fuck you sent me? And I'm like, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, I
Yeah.
have no idea. But I found them and read them, and it was like the same stuff, though. Like you were saying, just making up excuses for why I'm
Yeah.
here in rehab, why I started why did I relapse again? And it was always everyone else's fault. That was my thing. I can't technically pinpoint one specific like you just mentioned, but I blamed it on everybody, from my dad wanting a different relationship with my father growing up, to my mom, to my stepdad, to my sister, to my wife and my ex-wife and friends and things that I was just the victim always. That was my go-to. Just anybody else but me.
I remember. So I was at the same stint at Landmark. Josh had just started sponsoring me, and I remember I wrote this amends letter out to my wife. And I called him. Man, I'm just like so proud of myself. Man, I'm working these steps. I don't even know what it means to be an alcoholic. He's been my sponsor for like 2 days. I haven't even met him yet. I'm just talking to him on the phone.
Now you're on step 9.
Yeah. I'm sitting there writing this thing out, and I'm like, yeah, this is good. It's like 3 pages long, basically of how I'm the victim. And I could not wait all day to call him just so I can get a pat on the back.
I can relate to that.
I call him up. I'm like, dude. He's like, what'd you do today? I'm like, dude, started my amends. He was like, what? I said, yeah, started my amends. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I said, what do you mean? I said,
I've been sober 48 hours.
I was like, well, I'm in residential now. Don't you know?
Yeah.
Like, you better recognize, like, I'm the fucking go-getter. You know what I'm saying?
The
Like,
need to clean everything up.
and he was like, please tell me you didn't send it. It's like, no, not yet. I said, I just got to get a stamp. I said, I'm ready. It's in the envelope and everything, man. I said, I'm just got to get a stamp. And he was like, throw it away. And I was like,
you were smarter than me. You talked to somebody for me. I just fucking
What case manager, man? They should have had a buffer. Like, hold on. Yeah. In regards to that question, I don't know if I can find what you said. It gave me more ideas because I blamed everybody too. Man, for me, and anybody that knows me and watches this, they're going to hear this word and be like, oh, shut up. Because I say it all the time, the lake house, right? If you know me, I had the lake house, and I loved the lake house. And
like
it was
Keanu Reeves movie with
it's so hard
outside.
to let that go. And my dogs, and having to find them forever homes, and I could not grasp that. I couldn't grasp divorce. I had developed this life that I couldn't grasp losing. And whether this is true or not, I don't know, because I was so deranged and delusional back then. But I remember like Googling at-home detoxes. And so I would get tab 10s, right, to come off of heroin, and I would drink beer, right, more about alcoholism.
Right.
I would drink beer to come off of liquor, and then I felt as though that I had what it takes to figure this out. And my partner at the time, and I don't want to throw her under the bus, I could be wrong, would influence me to, so like the way it works with heroin, you'll know this, is that you go a week or two and don't do heroin, all of a sudden my mind doesn't say yay, it says now I'll get high on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I kept thinking that I had this intrinsic drive to get sober and that I can do this, and I would keep trying it my way, and I would blame my ex-wife, and I would blame my father and the dynamic there and everything under the sun, and I have a bachelor's degree. You know what I mean? I can do this. I don't need to do the Kumbaya AA thing. And so I think I hung on to that for far too long. Plus, I was, I had some atheist tendencies, I'll say, and that was, I felt as though this was just some conversion camp. somebody knocking on my door saying, have you given Jesus a shot? And I was like, I'm not interested in that. I just don't want to shoot heroin anymore. And I think that I probably could drink a 6-pack of Stella Artois and maybe do like a half gram of Coke on like my birthday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so,
Like a gentleman.
yeah, and the reservations manifested. And, after trial and tribulation and trial and error, I found that I cannot. So I'm just happy I survived it. So hopefully that answers your question.
Mm-hmm.
I really, that's a tough question.
The more you say too, I'm just like, man, we were just alike. Because my go-to was always, well, I need to get off the heroin. I'm going to smoke meth for 7 days, and I'm going to eat a turkey sandwich and sleep for 2, and I'm good to go. And that's how I do it. I'm like, I feel fucking great.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Imagine that's in the big book.
I think I need some heroin.
Imagine that's in the big book.
Right.
You just need to smoke meth for 8 days and eat a turkey sandwich, and then you're going to be good.
Like, what is ham okay?
Yeah.
Like, I did that for.
Had to be turkey.
I did
Had to
that.
be turkey.
I did
Old
that
timers
for.
has to be turkey.
I did that for like 2 years of just like jump. This week I'm doing meth.
Yeah.
Next week I'm doing coke. Then the following week I'm doing pain pills. Then the following week I'm doing Suboxone. And then next week it's Adderall. And it's just like I'm jumping that way. I'm not getting dependent on any of these things.
Yeah.
And it was so ridiculous,
Yeah.
man. Like it just.
And a part of us feels like we're doing good.
Oh, I did.
Oh,
So
The trajectory.
I went through this one period where, so my wife is a registered nurse, and she can just look at me and tell if I'm high. Like, as soon as I walk in the door, she, this motherfucker. Like, you been using today? No. How dare you? Get pissed off, stomp around, get demonstrative.
Mm-hmm.
But,
A little gaslighting in there.
so I would always do this experiment and be like, okay, I'm going to buy some Adderall and I'm going to buy some pain pills. I'm going to try to get this perfect concoction because I know how my eyes look when I'm on pain pills, but when I'm on the uppers, they're the opposite. So I'm only going to do the pain pills up until lunch break at work. And then after that, it's Adderall. That way, by the time I get home, my eyes look normal, right?
Yeah.
And I would always overshoot the mark, because lunchtime would come and I'd be like, I still kind of want to take some more of these pain pills, and I would, and I'd get home and she'd be like, "You used today?"
You were trying to use to the point where you presented sober.
I'm trying to use myself sober.
Yeah, it's too big. I got to bring it down. Oh, it's too small. You got to come up a little.
Dude, it was just a struggle every day, and I'd be driving home just constantly in the rearview mirror. Like, how do I look? Oh, yeah, looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. Like, I better take some more Adderall. Like, shit, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I did that shit for at least 2 years. And it was just the things we do, man. Like, that is exhausting.
Yeah.
That is an exhausting way to live. Because at that point, if I'm having to manage it, I can't enjoy it.
Right.
It talks about it in the big book that it's the great obsession that we will manage and enjoy our use. But if I'm having to manage it, I can't enjoy it.
Right.
Because I'm not doing it the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
And it was just.
There's too much like focus and intention on it, right?
Yeah.
Like it was said early on, if you're controlling your drinking, you're not enjoying it. And if you're enjoying it, you're not controlling it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like, I'm only going to have 4 beers today. That's not how I drink.
No.
That's not going to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
We've all tried this so many times.
Yeah.
I've got this thing. I know all of us, we have this thing.
Yeah.
Fully admit.
Why?
Yeah.
I had a revelation though, and I love this because you are saying things and it's sparking stuff. The way when our brain actually is like has some gas in it and some fumes. It can run and operate like an engine. It was a revelation between maybe the 6 or 1 year mark, and I realized that I would use chemicals to come up, and then I'd be too far up. So then I'd have to use the chemicals to come down, and now I'm too far down. And I have to miss the mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all I wanted was to just find the mark. And it was between 6 months to 1 year sober that I realized the mark was sobriety. Because I wake up to an alarm clock now. And I have coffee. And it's not like I'm too high or too low. I was paying money to get back to a baseline. And then all I had to do was just sit still, do some of the work, and there's the baseline. Now, that's hard work because the baseline is a beautiful thing. Like, it, for me, was like a goal.
Yeah.
But, like, I didn't realize, I had this revelation. I'm like, oh, my God, I was just paying to be sober. Because I forgot what it felt like to, like, not be too high or not be too low. You know what I mean? And
It
that
talks
was
about
really
that
cool.
in the big book. In the doctor's opinion, it says the effect was so elusive. It's like we're trying to get to that effect, but I can't ever get to it. It's like
Yeah.
trying to catch air.
Yeah.
Like slips through my fingers all the time, because if someone told me and sat me down and said, Brian, the mark is 4 beers. Problem is, I can't stop at 4 beers. Like, even if you're telling me that's the mark, that's your sweet spot.
Yeah.
I'll get to the sweet spot and I'll bust right through it
Yeah.
because I can't stop once I
Yeah.
start.
Yeah.
But the bigger problem is that I can't keep from starting. Like, I was a really good quitter. Like, I'll stop just to piss you off, right? I'll get sober for a week just to piss you off, and I'll make you miserable the whole time, right? But I couldn't ever stay stopped.
Mhm.
I couldn't keep from starting,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
once I start, I can't keep from continuing.
Right.
So it's just this hamster wheel of constantly trying to stop or start, start, don't stop or don't start.
Mhm.
It's like just it takes up so much energy.
Yeah. I was just
I
thinking
can't
that.
get
It's such a
nothing
waste of our brain power.
It is.
I could have been
insane.
doing so many other things.
Oh yeah, dude.
Than having to like gauge my pupils to make sure that my wife didn't recognize.
I know, right? And she probably knew every time.
Oh yeah.
Even when I thought I hit the mark, she's probably like, he thinks he's slick.
Yeah.
Look at this guy.
I mean, I have memories of, my last relapse where I was doing the same thing. Well, I know I just got to do a little bit to get right so I'm not sick. And I remember Christmas morning, and that's, we get right,
Mm-hmm.
at the wrong
time.
times,
Yep.
and I remember
The worst possible time.
I remember
It
sitting
says it
there
gets
and-
tight at the wrong time.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
and that it happened to me on Christmas morning, with my children there, and my wife's like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "Just tired. I'm just sleepy." And
Tired is the go-to.
Yeah, I'm
Tired is the
I'm
go-to.
putting up toys on. I'm putting together toys
Right,
on.
and I'm like,
Yeah, being a good dad.
Like, I put the toys together. You didn't. Like, oh yeah.
yeah, that's right. It's just crazy. But so you work in this field now, or you have, that's where I met you when I was in treatment. How it, so for me, like I can pinpoint a specific in my life right now. I see that they're doing the things that we're talking about, where they went to treatment for a short detox stay, and now they show up and they got non-alcoholic beers.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'm just kind of letting them do their thing, and
Who's them?
I'll let this individual.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't want to
I got you.
put it out there.
Sure.
Like that,
I didn't know
but-
this was like a pattern that you're saying.
No, this, but how is it for you, like when you see that type of stuff as far as from working in the field? Like, how's that for you? Is that I'm sure you all don't get to just, I know you don't get to just say everything that you want to say all the time.
Sure.
but-
That's a great question.
I mean, like going back to old behaviors, is that kind of like what you?
Yeah.
Yeah, things that they don't deem as high risk that
Yeah.
could be.
Right,
Yeah. That's a good question. As a licensed clinician, I have an ethical duty not to self-impose my ideology and opinions on people. But discussing their need for non-alcoholic beer would be something, right? It's called Socratic questioning, discussing their need for that, because what they're essentially saying is that they've drank for the taste, and I don't know. I know I didn't.
I've
Don't get me
never
wrong.
drank 30 Mountain Dews.
Right. I don't see the non-alcoholic beer thing as much as I see the I'm gonna smoke weed. You know what I mean?
That's the number one.
And
yeah.
a conversation that we like to have, whether it's peer support or whether it's in the clinical side, is that it's important to look at what don't we agree with about being sober. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if I have to take a mood or mind altering substance, and that means I'm changing the way I feel, which means if I'm changing this intentionally, then there's something about this that I don't like. So let's first look at that. What is it that you don't like?
Yeah. Why do you need something?
Yeah. What is it about being with yourself completely sober that you don't like? Right? And the opinion of completely sober is not something that I, have to give. It's just, when it comes to that, right, marijuana or whatever, I don't. I've seen people change their lives and become great fathers and do all the things on MAT, through marijuana maintenance. And if your life is getting better and you're integrating yourself more into society and your family, man, power to you. You know what I mean? Like, other people's opinions are none of my business, nor should mine be theirs. But if I'm like assigned to work with them, we do the exploration and the detective work with the questions, and I just have them find that out for themselves. I don't impose my opinion on it. For me, what's worked is total abstinence, and that's not what the only thing I support. That's just I'm a part of AA, and that's what we do. But that's because I tried other ways. Maybe they're not there yet. You know what I mean? So I've had 7 sobriety dates, and I tried just smoking weed, and I tried just doing coke instead of meth, and I tried just drinking Newcastles instead of Taka vodka, right? And none of it worked. It always sent me to Hardin County Detention Center or a detox or a hospital or being Narcaned in some random parking lot. So I did the research for myself, and that's how I got my results. So, some people maybe are beyond the research and they have enough research, and maybe some people just aren't there yet.
Yeah, I mean, some people, maybe the disease hasn't progressed in them far enough yet to where they can still do that.
Yeah.
Mine progressed pretty quickly, because I tried the same thing. And most of us do. It's like, okay, well, pain pills were the problem. That was my initial time that I tried to get sober. But my idea of getting sober was just not taking pain pills.
Yeah.
I'm still going to drink.
Yeah.
I'm still going to smoke weed.
Because you identified that only as the problem.
That was the only problem. And looking back on it, that's ridiculous. Like, in my life, because alcohol was a huge problem.
Yeah.
But I thought, I talked about it on another podcast that we did, that I thought I was still controlling my alcohol use.
Sure. You want to believe that.
I did believe it, and I was delusional, because I was not.
Yeah.
You can ask anyone in my life, they'll tell you, like, no, you need to quit all this shit.
Yeah.
But, I think that's a good point, though, is that, and Evan said this another day that we were in here, is that we have to meet people where they're at. So, and it's funny you said the non-alcoholic beer, because that just came up for me with a guy that I sponsor. Like, literally the next day after you told me about it happened, I was like, "Are you fucking with me?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Are you fucking with me? Have you been talking to Evan or something?" And he was like, "No." I was like, "Oh, okay, never mind. Continue. Go ahead." I was just like, I couldn't believe that he said that. And it was the same kind of beer and everything. I was just like, wow. It's like, man. But, it is what it is.
Yeah. And, as putting on my AA hat, I find that it's really important for me to tell somebody that is pursuing me for help what I did in the situation, right?
Yeah.
I had a sponsee once before that was smoking weed, and he asked my opinion on it, and I was like, I can't give you my opinion. I don't have experience as somebody that like has my sobriety date and goes to these meetings and has smoked weed, but I do know people in my life that I can connect you with. So like, a part of us wants to give advice and be like, red flags, alert,
Right, yeah.
But I had to like reel it in and realize that like I can only give you experience with what I have experience with, right? Like, I got sponsees with kids. I don't have kids. So when they ask me things, I reach out to my support group with people with kids, or I'll connect them. So I got to be careful with that. Obviously, when we hear those things, red flags, alerts, we're concerned, we're worried.
Yeah.
It's good intentions. But yeah, so that's something that, I've had to, the longer I'm sober, right? When we're in meetings, it's like I statements, we're not lecturing, we learn that as we go. So yeah, I guess I'm lucky I survived the experiments, enough to get to the point where, I don't need any of that.
Yeah, I think opinions kill alcoholics.
Oh yeah.
So like, and I'm the same way. I know Evan is too. If I don't have experience with something, I'm just going to tell them straight up, hey, I have no experience with that. I can try to connect you with someone who does, but I'm not your marriage counselor. I'm not your lawyer.
Right.
I'm not your probation officer.
Yeah.
I'm none of those things.
Yeah.
I've never walked in your shoes. I don't know what you're going through is like.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sit here and potentially harm you by trying to come up with, I got to be the guru. I got to have the right answer. Sometimes the best answer you can tell someone is, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have a clue.
I'd
Never
rather
been
you tell
through
me
it.
that than
Absolutely.
make something up that
'Cause
sounds good.
Yeah, because that could kill somebody.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
that's the truth.
It's harmful for sure. I got to be careful, right? Because I'm a therapist for work and I'm a sponsor for my
Mhm.
program. So I got to be, I can't be a therapist as a sponsor, right? I
Right.
take you through the steps. I give you experience, strength, and hope. You need a ride to a meeting. You need me to set you up with speaking at a treatment program or whatever, get you involved, whatever. Those are the things I can do. And sometimes, they'll call me and I was like, I have a therapeutic technique that would be great for this,
Right.
And I have to pull it back. And so now what I've learned is when somebody asks if I'll sponsor them, I'll let them know like, hey, like I am not going to be a therapist in this dynamic. I am going to be a sponsor, and this is what that looks like. So I, set that boundary up front.
Yeah, you got to be upfront with
Yeah.
people about that kind of stuff. Like it takes a lot of awareness to do that. Like that means that your ego is right sized.
Hmm.
Because if it wasn't, it'd be like, I'm gonna fix this dude.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna fix this dude. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna show him how much I know.
Yeah. And that's
know?
how I know Gary's will from God's will, because my
Yeah.
will says, I got this. I got you. Just come on over here. We'll figure this all out. God's will says you have no experience with that, And that's, when you say the third step prayer and God runs the show, it's wild how that happens.
Mhm.
Naturally, I want to fix you, right? But
Yeah.
it's met with resistance, and that resistance, in my opinion, is God saying, whoa, chill out. Chill out. You might hurt this kid.
Yeah, because all you're doing is playing God at that point.
Right.
If I'm here to fix you, and if that person's dependence lies on me,
Mm-hmm.
then they're not going to rely on their higher power.
Yeah.
If I'm there, call me with every single problem you ever have. I have every answer for you. If I'm the answer man,
Mm-hmm.
then they're not going to rely on a power greater than themselves. They're going to rely on me all the time. And it's up to me. The responsibility is mine to not set it up that way in the beginning.
For sure.
To let these guys know, like, hey, if I have experience with it, I'll help you. But otherwise, Josh used to always tell me, like, he's hung up on me so many times. Like, I'll call him with something like, you don't understand what she's doing. The same thing we were talking about the other day. Man, now she's doing it again. He's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Do you talk to God about it? Like, no, that's why I'm calling you. And it clicked. Like, this motherfucker.
I used to hate
Like, calling back, bro, I think we got disconnected. No, I hung up on you. Like, no, I hung up on you. Like, you need to talk to God about it and then call me. Like,
yeah.
You
I
still
always thought that was a cop out. Like my sponsor was like busy.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he didn't want to deal with me when it's like that's your job, right? I was so misguided and come to find out, like that's the spiritual toolkit. Like that's because that's what I do.
Yeah.
If I have a fear or a harm, right, or a resentment, there's a prayer for each of those, and I'm gonna do that before I pursue outside help. Right?
Absolutely.
I'd rather tap into the infinite power than the tangible power.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I remember being like, I was so annoyed by that. I was like, this is such a cop out. Like, just help me, right?
Yeah.
Or like, give me the pill that's gonna cure my alcoholism. We need that instant gratification.
So sorry to bother you.
Yeah, sorry to burden you.
Yeah.
This has just got me thinking over here from bringing that whole thing up. Even at 3.5 years sober, I can see even in my recovery and trying to work with others, it's almost like I'm still trying to control some shit, especially when it comes to helping other people.
Sure.
It's hard not to.
It is. It's hard not to. And I'm sitting here thinking about, you were talking about Matt, and in different ways, there's more than one way to recover. It's not just we're all members of AA. That's not the only way. And I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like, man, because when I hear someone that's on Matt, in my mind, I'm always like, so, but I'm sitting here thinking, you're here listening to you speak, and I'm like, man, like everybody's journey's different. Yeah. So some people might need that. I think it's just like I want everybody to do it the way I did it, the way I got sober, the way I know how to get sober. So
you're not alone in that.
Yeah,
I think that the intention's good because we know that worked.
Yeah, maybe I need to step back and not try to control some shit.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it comes down to. It's just, when you want somebody to get it so bad.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
they're on their own journey. So I'm glad I just listened to you say those things, because I'm like, man, maybe I need to.
I know some people too. the way they pursue it is that they let them know, hey, I don't have experience working steps, on that, but I have a friend that does. So then they set them up with him because he has experience, strength, and hope with that. When you want to talk about maybe your, desire to taper off or things like that, you can have somebody that's equipped for that conversation,
Yeah.
and I think that that's us minimizing harm for that person. Because like I, want to be able to give you what I have experience in. And, it's sticky and there's so much controversy around all of it. And I just think it's just something to pass time for people that are bored, honestly. Because at the end of the day, like my bed is still comfortable. My girlfriend is still beautiful. My fridge is still full of food and my car's got a full tank of gas and I'm employed and my owner still signs the paychecks and my sponsees are doing this thing one day at a time. That's all that matters to me. You know what I mean? So I've got to, personally, I've got to be careful with what I'm putting my hands in, right? Like the serenity prayer kind of deal.
Yeah.
But it's hard because I don't know about you all, but for me, I'm very opinionated as an alcoholic.
Me too.
Very opinionated.
Yeah.
And I had to realize
Judgmental.
but like also my best thinking for so long was hogwash. So I'm like, maybe my opinions suck.
Yeah.
And I had to like take a slice of humble pie. I'm not saying yours do. Other than you're a fan for Kentucky. I'm just kidding. But, and then I had to, talk to my sponsor about it or talk to my therapist about it. And then they'd look at it and be like, well, why do you feel that way? And then I'd be able to, share that with them and they'd give me more insight. But a lot of confrontation around that, what I do working in my field is support all avenues, right? But like my journey from Alcoholics Anonymous is my truth, which is, I've been totally abstinent since July 16, 2020. So due to research.
I guess I just got to remember that, like what you said, as far as, Matt, as far as like Matt goes and stuff like that, as long as their life is getting better,
Mm-hmm.
they're just on a different journey.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard for me to,
Yeah.
see that and look at it from that perspective. Just, I guess, from my background,
Yeah, I think it's tough. I agree with what you're saying. My thing with it is, and this is just my personal opinion, right? So I'm gonna put that out there that this is an opinion, right? It's not fact or anything like that. Is where I struggle with it is when I see people using it. Not that they use it, because I think it is a good form of harm reduction, and I think if it's keeping you alive, I think that's a good thing. Because you probably have a mother, a father, a brother, a sister. That's a good thing if it's keeping you alive. But the problem is people also abuse it, and I don't view it as a way to live your life for the rest of your life. That's just my personal opinion. And, but I mean, not to say that that's right,
Sure.
because I'm judgmental, like I haven't walked in their shoes and I probably need to look at that a little bit differently. I know what coming off of that stuff is like, and I know it's hell,
it's terrible.
because I came off of it cold turkey while going to IOP, here in my detoxing in my bed for 20 plus days. And it was awful, but I wasn't really using it for harm reduction either. So it's important to say that.
Yeah.
I was using it just to not go through withdrawals, so
Yeah.
that's a different thing,
For sure.
so I need to kind of like what Evan was saying is I need to kind of look at it from a different perspective and look at it from the point of, hey, is this keeping you alive? Okay. Like, cause it doesn't mean that I still don't believe that you should necessarily lean on it for the rest of your life. But who's to say that you will? It's not, maybe someone stays on it for a year and then they get off of it, but here 3 weeks in, I'm judging them, like that's not my place.
Right.
And I'm glad you said that, because it kind of put it in perspective to me that, I'm being judgmental. And anytime I'm being judgmental, that means I'm being selfish. That means that I think I know what you should do with your life. And I need to take a different perspective on that. Like I said earlier, we got to meet people where they're at sometimes, you know. But that might look like, hey, I can't sponsor you, so, and maybe that's the approach that I need to take with things like that. Is like, hey, I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong, but I don't have experience with that.
Right.
And I can't help you with that.
Yeah.
If you get off of it, I can help you. Or I can help you. I can put you in contact with someone who can help you.
For sure.
So I don't know. I think I'm glad you said that because it's got me thinking that, I've been maybe not so. See, the thing is, we tell people when they come in to like AA that they've got to be open minded. But sometimes the longer we're sober, we feel like that doesn't apply.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it doesn't apply to me because, I did the deal, and I did everything that I was supposed to do. So therefore, I don't have to be open-minded, and that's not the case. That's not right, so.
I mean, I try to, it's easy for me to talk about the way I live today and the things I do for my sobriety today, but it also took me several attempts and different types of research, to figure it out. So I'm glad that was brought up because I definitely will start looking at it in a different light for sure.
And not to say that your own opinion's right or wrong or mine is either. It's good conversation.
Yeah.
But also we're taught not to take people's inventory.
Yeah.
Like naturally as humans we're judgmental.
Yes.
But like that's when I'm exerting brain energy into being judgmental, I know that I'm taking the wheel back.
Yeah.
Right? And thy will, not mine, be done. And I gotta let God, it's God is either everything or nothing. And in this guy's life and his journey, God is still everything. So there's a lot to it. And, I've been through a whole lot of roller coasters and opinions with it. And, it's, I don't know.
So it just made me think of something when you said you're taking the wheel back. So the big book says that we're driven by 100 forms of fear, self-pity, whether it's self-delusion. So if I'm being driven by something, that means that I'm not behind the wheel, right? That means that I'm going wherever my mind's taking. Like I'm not in charge, right? When I'm driven by fear, and like so in a instance like that, there's fear there.
Yeah.
Because it's like I don't want you to stay hooked on this thing. I don't want you to have to go through the detox that I went through.
Yeah.
I don't want you to be dependent on a substance. So there's fear there, and I'm being driven by that fear, and it comes out in the form of judgmentalness and selfishness.
Sure. But like people can be dependent on an antidepressant. They can be dependent on, sleeping medication and antipsychotic, right? If you have schizophrenia, you should probably be taking your medication.
Absolutely.
And so like perhaps there's a societal stigma on it that plays a part, because like I've got a friend who's been on Suboxone for 6 years, and he is an incredible person in his community and his family and all of that. You know what I mean? And so it's like that's not the picture that some people would paint on a 6-year Suboxone use, right?
Yeah.
And that's stigma. So like, being able to work in it and see it's helped to, change my point of view. But yeah.
Well, this conversation is helping change mine.
Yeah.
And that's what growth is about, right?
For sure.
It's like I don't have to dig my heels in and be like, no, dude, I'm right.
Yeah.
Like
we've done enough of that.
Yeah, I'm wrong a lot.
Yeah. Me too.
Like that's something that I've learned in sobriety is that I'm wrong a lot.
Yeah.
I probably was never wrong my first 41 years of my life. So I guess I'm due. At least I didn't think I was ever wrong.
Right.
But
it's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah, absolutely it is. I just got my mind thinking about stuff now.
It's good that we have a mind that works like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I've been kind of going here lately. I don't know what sparked it, but I've been kind of going back. I think it's maybe because we've been doing this podcast, and I'm kind of looking back at like where I am now versus where I was. just in a more of a healthy way, of like reflecting, of like just trying to like honestly assessing, like giving myself a little grace because sometimes I can be hard on myself, and I'm like, oh, dude, look where you're at now, and it made me think of the first time that I tried to get sober when I went to we had talked about it in our first episode about I'm trying to do it the easier, softer way. I'm going to IOP. I'm not going to inpatient. And I remember my intake, and I'm withdrawing from Suboxone and pain pills. And I go in there, and this counselor is sitting across from me, and he's asking me these questions, right? And I'm sick, like physically sick. Like, I think I'm going to throw up in his trash can, and I'm just not doing well, struggling. And he starts asking me questions about my family. Like, and I went from physically ill to emotionally ill, like that. And I was slinging snot everywhere, crying, and he was just like, why'd you just get so upset when I asked about your kids? And I was just like, I'm just a mess.
And when we're in that state of detox, everything's running higher.
Yeah,
that's always the worst part for me, checking into rehab and having to sit there and they're asking questions. I'm like, fuck you, just let me go lay down.
But I can remember it like it was yesterday because I finally started to see like how I didn't want to live like that. I didn't stay sober,
Sure.
But that was kind of when the seed was kind of first getting planted, to where I was just like, dude, like I never want to go back to that feeling sitting there. I felt like the biggest piece of shit sitting around across from this man who was just asking me simple questions. How many kids you got? Like, just freak out. And it was just, I don't know, man. I remember that detox was rough. And I remember I would come home every day after IOP and I would call my brother. He lives in Ohio and I don't see him very often. I'd call him and just cry on the phone for an hour. And he'd be like, dude, are you okay? And I remember that counselor asked me, he said, are you sure you don't need inpatient treatment? And I was like, I'm good.
Yeah, you can flip the switch now. Put on the mask.
No, I'm good, man. No, I'll get through this. So he just gave me a couple days and it took over 3 weeks, of struggling.
Yeah.
So,
it's an example of it's great, you get your feelings back, but it sucks, you get your feelings back, and not being able to immediately like pick up the phone and call to change the way you feel, to not feel it, or to go get it, right? And it's like, oh my God, I got to sit through this,
I mean, you said you get your feelings back, right? So I remember early on, I was in treatment at RAC, and I was talking to Josh, and I was like, dude, when am I supposed to start feeling better? I was like, I'm not drinking, I'm not drugging. I thought I'm supposed to feel better. And he's like, yeah, you feel better. He said, let me tell you what you feel better. You feel resentment better. You feel fear better. You feel pain better. You feel all that shit better.
Sign up for this.
And I was just like, fuck, man, he's right. Like, I'm sober and I'm even more pissed off.
Yeah.
I'm more irritable. It's like, I don't have anything to numb that stuff anymore. I'm just raw dogging it now. And I just, man, it was tough. But, if we can survive the temporary, that's temporary. There's a caveat, though. It's temporary if we do something about it.
Right.
It's not going to go away if I just stay away from the drink, if I stay away from the pills and don't do anything. It's going to get worse.
Yeah. Because, it's not like evidence-based per se, but like the dryness of it. You know what I mean? I couldn't imagine not changing. Like we started this podcast. Yeah, we started this podcast, and I was talking about outlook, perspective. I couldn't imagine not changing that, thinking the same way I used to think, just without the drugs and alcohol. There's a meme and it says something. I used to blame it on the alcohol, but now I just have to say I'm crazy. You know what I mean? And I get that, but it's like, I couldn't imagine not putting in any of the work. And that's why AA, to me, is so beautiful, because it was spiritual work that I never was interested in, right? I was raised Catholic, and then, you know, I'm a natural nonconformist rebel. Like, if my mom wants me to go to church Sunday, you best believe that's the one thing I'm not going to do.
Yeah.
If I can't watch a rated R movie, I'm watching a rated R movie. If I'm not allowed to watch South Park as a kid, I'm going over to the friend's house that's allowed to watch South Park. You know what I mean? And those were the isms. But, like, you know, I came to believe that God wasn't real. And I'm not here to say that God is or isn't or any of that. I am a human being. I just have my beliefs. And here's what happened. When I finally was ready to do something different, I heard it for the 5,000 times, but 5,001 was the time. If you're missing the spiritual part of the program, you're missing the whole thing. And here I am in rehab for the 4th time in a year or two at the same rehab with the same staff, wondering, how did I get here? And I realized I was missing the spiritual thing. And it's not that I was missing, I was unwilling to pursue it. I wasn't missing it. I didn't believe that that would work. I thought that was some hocus pocus. That's cute for you all, right? And so I decided at that moment, that's what I need to do. I need to tap into that. And step 2 for me, my favorite word in step 2 is could. Came to believe that a power greater than myself could.
Not would or should.
Right. And not will, right? Could restore me to sanity. It did it for my sponsor. It did it for the staff members at the treatment center. It did it for my uncle in the program. And all I have to believe is that it did it for them. And if it did it for them, maybe that is something that works for people. I am a person. Maybe it'll work for me. So, you know, I'll share this and I'll shut up, but I was laying on the back I was at Praxis over off Taylor Boulevard. Shout out to Praxis, man. They saved my life. Well, they laid the foundation. I'm laying in the back courtyard area, and it was right after this guy came in, and he said, if you're missing the spiritual part, you're missing the whole thing. And I'm laying there, and I'm smoking a cigarette, and I'm looking up, and it's a sunset. It's gorgeous. It's like a burnt orange. You know what I mean? With the little purple hits, and it was gorgeous. And then I look over at the building, and it has those cigarette towers where everybody puts their butts. And you know, sometimes people put napkins and stuff, they catch on fire. It was on fire. So it's smoking, there's butts everywhere, there's like crushed up cans. And then I look up, and it's peaceful, and it's a sunset. And at that moment, I started to realize maybe that's God's will, and maybe that's Gary's will. And that's how I started differentiating, right? Because I didn't do that. And that's stunning. But this is like, finite. That's human.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I can burn everything down.
Yeah. And so I started to really get with that. So then I just started saying the serenity prayer, and I started thanking God for keeping me sober that day and thanking God for waking me up. And here's all I'll say about that is that, because I'm not here, right, to like, I'm just here cutting up with my friends, right? But once I started believing and pursuing this idea that I could strengthen my conscious contact with a God of my understanding, my life has gotten better. That part's a fact. I cannot say if God's real or not. I don't feel I'm qualified to do that because I am a human being. But I can say that since I have believed, my life has gotten better. That's undeniable. So the spiritual part was a huge barrier for me. And then once I started to lock in, right, you hear a million things in AA meetings, and then there's that one time you hear it, and you're like, oh my gosh. I remember when one day at a time started making sense for me. It's such a simple concept, but I'm like, I'm envisioning a life of sobriety and all these things. All I've got to do is stay sober today. That's manageable in my mind, you know, and all these things, there's like, wow, there's a lot of power in that.
You know, so if the problem is spiritual, then it makes sense that the solution would be spiritual. You know, so that spiritual sickness, it says in the book, right, that once we straighten out once the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. So that tells me that the problem is this spiritual sickness, this internal problem that I have, that natural state of irritable, restless, discontent, prey to misery and depression, full of fear, resentment, boredom, feeling useless, low self-esteem, right? All of that stuff is what I drink over because I can't feel that way, right? So once I find, that's why the whole higher power thing for me is both novel and effective, because because I've proven that I can't do anything. So I know that I need to have some kind of psychic change, a spiritual experience, spiritual awakening, right, to recover. I know that I need that. But what I'm learning step one is that I can't have one, right? Not on my own power. I can't cause that to happen. Because if I could, I would have, right? So that's the beauty in the steps is that one leads you into the next one. So step one, I realized that I'm powerless over alcohol and that I can't change on my own. I can't change myself. So that leads me to step two that you were just talking about, to where it's like, is maybe there's something that can, maybe something can, maybe something can work on my behalf.
Yeah.
And that's what was told to me early on. It's like, if you just get out of the way for 5 fucking minutes, then maybe God or whatever your conception is can work on your behalf.
That's the complexity of getting sober right there.
Right. Yeah.
How do I know how to get out of my own way when I've only been in my way my whole life?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's the hard part. And that's where I just had to take suggestions. They're like, look, if you don't want to make your bed, make your bed. If you don't want to go to group, go to group. Because you in your own way is doing things that are just so comfortable for you. God forbid you get a little uncomfortable, right? And I know it was either episode 1 or 2 that I watched of y'all talked about getting uncomfortable. And a quote that rocks my world is growth rarely comes from your comfort zone. And nobody wants to hear that. When I'm in early recovery, it's like you're asking me the intake questions when I'm detoxing. Like, go on somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's so cute. Growth really goes, but it's true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's easier for us to say it on this side of the fence. There go I. Like, I understand as somebody new, like, you don't want to get uncomfortable. But once you start getting a little bit uncomfortable, it starts to gain momentum.
You start to stack.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody's super sober day 14.
No.
You know what I mean? It's spiritual growth. It's emotional sobriety.
We don't want you to get over sober.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a gentleman named Tom. He's been in my life since I was, a little kid. He's been sober for 40 plus years now.
Hell yeah.
And I started coming around, I guess, the end of 2011. And, I would put some time together and go back, and then put some time together and go back. And that's what he always told me for years. You're missing the whole spiritual side of the program. So you're missing it all. I'm working the steps. I'm sponsoring other men, but I never had a conception of a higher power ever in my life.
Yeah.
So I was missing that whole spiritual side of it. So like you're saying, I was missing the whole program. And for me, this go around, refuge recovery helped me a lot from the spiritual side of stuff too. And Rebecca, I know you know Rebecca. She gave me this simple prayer to start with, and and I just had. That's what this time around I was like, man, maybe there's something to this. There's a reason all these people have all this long-term sobriety, and they all tell me the same shit.
Right.
Maybe I just need to shut the fuck up and listen.
Common denominators.
Right.
So it's.
I think it's a time too for us to like just chill out. My prayer and meditation is just like me not like having to over consume this mental anguish of everything in life and bills and family and car and this. And it's just that. And for me, it's like it allows me to kind of have my emotional barometer come way down, and it gives me an opportunity to breathe, and I get to feel serenity, because we feel the bad feelings really hard, but we feel the good ones hard too, And the spirituality for me at first was it was like something I look forward to. Like I get done with my day at Praxis, and at the end of the day, I go into my room and I pray. And I looked forward to it. And I was like, that's strange. That's not me. And I'd read a book, and like, I don't know, it was just my time, and I've taken that with me. Like I like waking up and my prayer, my coffee, and the birds singing. I love that.
Something for me as far as like the prayer and meditation, I started to practice this prayer, and it's evolved over the last few years. But the meditation side of it, for so long, I would always beat myself up because I never understood what meditation was.
You think you gotta be like a Buddhist monk?
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I always thought I would attempt it, and then it's like my mind starts going, and I'm like, oh, this ain't fucking working. I can't do this. But then I learned, through AA and through refuge recovery, how, what it was really about. And, unless you're, like you said, a Buddhist monk and you've done this since, your entire life, to reach that state, like
Mhm.
most of us will never get there. It's about being able to center myself and be present. And when that crazy shit comes in my head or whatever it is, I can let it come in, but I can let it go,
Yeah.
and get back to center and where I'm at. And I never understood that stuff until this time around,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, truth be told, I don't think I really felt what meditation was intended to do until like maybe 3 or 4 years sober. I did it. But like I remember there were certain moments within the last 2 or 3 years where like when the meditation ended, like, wow.
Oh yeah.
And
you just feel like on fire.
Yeah.
You're like, wow.
Yeah.
That's what I've been missing.
Like I remember one time doing a meditation and they said, unclench your jaw. I had never thought about that, and I did it. I'm like, by default, my jaw's clenched.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
all these muscles that I tense up just as a natural human being in the state that I'm in. And like for them to say that, they say in AA, right? Or at least it was told to me, prayers, talking to God, and meditating is listening. And then I try and think of humans in my life that will cut you off or do selective listening. I don't like those people in my life, right? They're hard to engage with. And I would hate to be that person to my higher power, right? Wherever God is. So I like to make sure. And also, there's an important word in step 11 for me. It's and. Stop through prayer and meditation, not or.
Yeah.
And it's important for me to do these steps thoroughly, because I see a lot of people, they get sober and they get their life back and they rest on their laurels, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they go back out, and I'm not willing to take that risk, one day at a time. I don't know how I'm going to be in 5 years, but at least today doing this, I'm probably going to hit my head on the pillow tonight sober.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you make, because that we have to combine those two things, because I've had sponsees like, dude, things aren't getting better, man. I'm praying, dude, every day. I'm like, well, that's not enough. I'm like, that's cool. Like, keep doing that.
Mhm.
I'm not telling you not to pray, but are you listening at all? It's like having kids or you go to your parents and you ask for advice and they go to give it to you and you won't let them say anything.
Yeah.
All you do is just keep asking questions. And it's like, well, I can't help you if you don't. It's like my higher power's like, dude, I can't help you if you're not willing to listen.
Yeah.
You're not giving me any time. All you're doing is asking for shit.
Yeah.
But, it's a great line in the book that says, faith without works is dead.
Mm-hmm.
I can pray till the cows come home. If I'm, I don't think a good analogy here, but if I'm starving and I go in that closet right there and I pray for a cheeseburger, am I going to get a cheeseburger? No, I've got to put in some action.
Yeah.
Like I firmly believe that God won't do for me what I can do for myself. So I'm going to pray and I'm going to meditate and try to get some guidance. And in the meantime, I'm going to put forth some action, because I think that if he sees me put forth action, then he will help me.
Yeah. I think the same can be said about like you're praying to God to get a job. And again, I don't want to pretend like I know what God wants from me or us, right? But this has been my experience. I'm praying to God to get a job. God has given me an ability to research their mission, to get a decent outfit, to prepare for the job, to make sure I'm there on time. That's where I have to kick in, where faith without works is dead, right? And I'm the director of family services over at the program I work for, and that's something we have to tell families too. You should not be doing for them what they can do for themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And like if somebody says, hey, do this resume for me, you're not helping them by doing it. So what we do is we say, you do the resume and then I'll review it. Right? And that's codependency is you doing it for them. And we're getting way into the weeds there, but there's so much to it that like I love that you said that. Like, in your opinion, what your experience says is that God's not going to do for you what you can do for yourself because he's already equipped you. So he's saying, why aren't you doing with what I've equipped you with, right? That's an insult to God. That's powerful.
Yeah, because I had an experience here recently or a few months ago to where I wasn't sure what avenue I wanted, like what I wanted to pursue in my life, right? And as far as like professionally, like career, stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I need to do what the program asked. I need to pray and I need to meditate on it. And I did that for a few nights, right? And when it comes to me in meditation, you need to go get certified to be a personal trainer. And I was like, okay, cool. Whatever. I go to bed. No one's here. My whole family, they're all at the lake. I'm here by myself. And I don't tell anybody. This is like 1 o'clock in the morning. I go to bed, wake up, look at my phone. First thing I see on there is an ad to become a personal trainer. And I was like, wow. I was like, okay, I see you. Like you're telling me.
Yeah, hard to
Like,
ignore that.
so I need to pursue it. So I mean, the answers I think will come.
Mm-hmm.
If we're disciplined.
Yeah.
And we're diligent about it, and we're not looking necessarily for the answers that we want to get.
Yeah.
I think that's important too, is not looking at what I want it to be, because then I'm not going to see it. But I don't know, man, it's been fun.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time and give Gary advice from 5 years ago, what would you tell Gary?
First thing comes to mind is that if you miss the spiritual part of the program, you're gonna miss the whole thing.
Yeah.
Man, if I knew what life was like now and I could go back, I would fill me in.
Yeah.
I would definitely give me some positive affirmations and validation and let me know that I am worthy of a better life and that I am capable of a better life and that I need to trust these people. And I need to understand that there's going to be some suck. And that's okay. And if I can just sit through the suck, because the way it was, it's like where the mountain was then was the least steep it was ever going to be. And if I go back out, it gets steeper and steeper and steeper. So like I would have told myself it is the easiest climb right now. And let go and let God.
Best time to start is right now.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
Anything that you're trying to do, whether it's getting sober, finding a new job.
For sure.
Anything.
Yeah, y'all could have thought about starting a podcast for another 5 years. You did it. You know what I mean? And that's awesome. I love that, right? Like we're acting our way into new thinking, and this is great. And I'm going to be a regular when it comes to listening and all the things. So, man, y'all just keep doing the deal. I love it.
Well, I told Brian the other night, I said, I think Gary just fanboyed on our
I did. I got to show love.
Yeah.
Because I think I hardly reacted one, and I was like, wait, like, do all of them,
Yeah, we appreciate that, man.
Of course.
Appreciate that.
Of course, man. We got to support each other.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Like I told Brian, like I love your energy, man. I had since I met you when I was in treatment, and I was like, man, this guy's got something. So I'm glad you came on. This was awesome.
I appreciate it.
Dude, thanks for your time, man.
Of course.
Evan just said it, but we appreciate everything that you've done here tonight. Like you've challenged my thinking, and I appreciate that.
Of course,
that's what we need. So
yeah.
We look forward to having you on here again.
Love to do it.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks, man.